All right, so for this episode of CHTV Sports, we're going to be doing an interview talking about the upcoming season for the Indianapolis Colts. And this next guest that's joining me is an expert on the Colts. He is actually the voice of the Colts on the radio. Matt Taylor joining us via the phone. Thank you for joining us today, Matt.
Hey, I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
All right, so before we start, I just want to ask you a quick question. Being from Indiana, what have the past couple years been like for you personally, calling the games with Jim Sorgi in the booth?
Well, they've been a dream come true. I mean, I was kind of taking you back a little bit. You know, I was that 10-year-old kid that at a really early age knew exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I just had a passion for sports, played sports growing up, and then loved listening to the radio. I really preferred listening to a game over watching a game because the great ones, the legends at play-by-play allowed you to use your imagination when you listen to a game. So to kind of marry those two things into my job, my career, and to be able to do it in my hometown, and for a team that I grew up watching and following, like I said, it truly is a dream come true, and I don't take it for granted. It's a huge responsibility, but it's something that I have very much in the last 2 years. I've had pinch me type moments when I'm able to call a game and bring a big moment in a Colts season to hundreds of thousands of people listening, around central Indiana, but nationwide with streaming and everything that goes into it. So it is a blast, and it beats having a real job, is what I always say.
I agree with that 100%. And I will say, like many Hoosiers, we all grew up listening to Bob Lamey on the radio. And that was a highlight for most people's Sundays. And let me just say, you've done a fantastic job in addition to that. And listening to you is just as good as listening to him was. All right, so first up, we've got DeForest Buckner, who we traded our first-round pick with to acquire from the 49ers. And I really like him because he's a young force in the middle who's yet to reach his prime. And I also listened to your appearance on the Docket Show, as I mentioned. And while you guys were discussing the Raider game, you talked about how much the run defense struggled in the first quarter of the season last year. And that was an issue that really seemed to linger. Guys like Derrick Henry, who went for a $150 against the Colts in Indy last year, are going to be a force in the division for years. And then they also brought in Sheldon Day, who was teammates with DeForest in San Francisco. So I like that acquisition as well. What do you have to add about DeForest?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in terms of a guy that's got a lot of upside, still young, is right now about to enter his prime, 26 years old. And everything you talked about in the run game is true. One thing I would like to add is he's a huge force in the Colts pass defense. And that's something that was really frustrating if you were a Colts fan. And I'm sure Chris Ballard saw this, and it kind of motivated him to make this move. I mean, so many times last year I've got this visual image in my head on a quarterback would drop the throw, he'd be in the pocket, the Colts would get a pretty good push off the edge, but a quarterback would just step up into the pocket because there was no interior pressure from the Colts last year, and he was able to complete passes down the field. I mean, last year the Colts allowed 70% completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks, and that's the second year in a row that's happened.
And then moving on to the offensive side of things, we bring in a Pro Bowl fullback in Roosevelt Nix. And many people may not remember this, but he was actually lead blocking for Le'Veon Bell when he was doing his thing over in Pittsburgh. And I know you talked to Roosevelt personally. What all did he have to say about coming to Indianapolis?
Yeah, he's just excited. I mean, he's a guy that just loves football and is not taking anything for granted because, he was a stud defensive tackle in college at Kent State, one of the best in the MAC. And just didn't have what it took to translate to the NFL at that position, but was just a pretty good athlete. Still loved football. Was a pretty good football player, organically. So he, decided to make the switch at his pro day, and was kind of just coming out of college as an athlete, and decided to give fullback a shot. And, it was an undrafted guy and stuck in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers and became, as you said, one of the best in the league. Was a Pro Bowler in 2017 and just relish the chance to just get on the field, because for a while there, he was out of football, and so just any chance to get back in is something that he doesn't take for granted. And he'll do anything. He's one of those guys who just relishes doing the dirty work.
All right, Matt, I think that's all I've got. I'd like to thank you again for joining me in this interview. It was great to get to pick your brain about the Colts free agency moves and your rise to getting in the position that you're at now, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Call anytime. Thank you.
All right, have a good day.